Motion.
Second. All in favor? It is recommended that Abby Lawson be hired as an instructional aide at Southeast Fountain Elementary for the 2022-2023 school year.
Abby's worn many hats in the Southeast Mountain School Corporation, from lifeguards, instructional aide, bus driver, cheerleading coach. So we are very excited to have her at the elementary level, working in our fourth grade classrooms.
Motion.
Second.
All in favor? It is recommended that, excuse me, Thomas Thompson be hired as an instructional aide at Fountain Central Junior Senior High School for the 2022-2023 school year.
Yeah, so Thomas actually graduated from ISU last December as an English teacher, or English teaching degree. He subbed for the last spring semester last year. He was looking for a little more experience before he gets in the actual classroom. So he jumped at the chance to be an instructional aide for us.
Motion. Second.
All in favor? It is recommended that Ashley McCurley be hired as a teacher at Fountain Central Junior Senior High School for 2022-2023 school year.
So Ashley, she's actually the stepdaughter of Denise McCurley. She kind of fell in our lap a little bit, which is kind of nice. She hasn't had any classroom experience, but she's worked in a lot of behavioral management in the past, and she's like looking to get her foot in the door in education. So we're excited to have her on.
Motion.
Second.
All in favor? It is recommended that Deputy Sheriff Scott Rainey be hired as the school resource officer for the 2022-2023 school year.
Okay, trying to increase our safety and security on campus. Worked with the sheriff's department and tried to get a second full-time SRO here. The county would not approve the budget for the sheriff because in the SRO, they pay half. It's a matching thing. They wouldn't do that. So instead, I hired Deputy Sheriff Rainey half-time, so the days he's not working for the police department, he will be here. So we get him 5 out of the 10 days in 2 weeks. 2 days, 3 days the next week. But in addition to that, when he's gonna be patrolling here and on his days for the sheriff's office, and Sheriff Holt agreed to that, you know, as long as he's not out on a call doing something else, he can be patrolling around here. So I'm excited that, you know, we're employing him directly for the 5 days. We're still waiting to hear if we get, I put that in our school safety grant. We won't know until sometime in about a month if that comes true, but we make the commitment to do this either way. So I'm thankful for the extra security on campus.
Yeah, so this will be our second.
Yeah, we
Yes.
still have Paul Davis
So we still have
full-time
Paul full.
and then Scott Rainey half-time.
Motion.
Second. All in favor? It is recommended that Sheena Blankenship be hired as an administrative assistant for the 2022-2023 school year.
Okay, as we talked about in a discussion a couple months ago, the state has now required, since we have an outside food service vendor, we have to have someone on our payroll who becomes food service certified and oversees that program. We also talked about all of the great things that our website should be able to do for us, and keeping that updated and keeping it look great is really important. But our IT department is already, we've gone to one-to-one for the entire district. They are swamped with keeping up with that kind of stuff. And so Sheena would be fulfilling both of those roles with food service and this. Also, we have always a need for coverage in our administrative support team. Specifically, we have people who may be out with FMLA or personal illness things. We have a secretary who does all of the prep for graduation and all of those things and can't, plus still doing her regular stuff. it just gets overwhelming. So having this extra person that can float wherever we need. Some days she might be subbing in a classroom. Some days she may be in here answering phones while Chelsea's working on a report and Lindsay's working on state report. You know, there's always a need. So we're excited to have her come into this role. She's worked for our district for about 8 years, and this gives her a chance to broaden her horizons as well. So we're excited.
Motion. Second.
All in favor? Okay, moving on to quotes. A motion was made that the quote from Rowing IT Solutions in the amount of $34,150 to make upgrades to the servers in all buildings.
Okay, the good news is that quote has now dropped to $33,255. Quinn presented me with the need for servers, and he prioritized to do it at Fountain Central first, the elementary second, and here third. But Cindy and I looked together at the budget and what we still have available in the last four technology kind of things. And it makes more sense to do them all at one time, not doing one and then try to piece together parts when something goes down somewhere else, since we have the money to do it. So I told Quinn that I was putting them together and recommending to you to do that. He went back then to Rowing and said, well, we might be able to do all three. So they gave us a new lower quote if we're gonna do it all at once. So thank you, Quinn, for getting us a lower quote. And
Motion. Second.
All in favor? The motion was made that the quote from Bloom of Minnesota LLC in the amount of $19,707 to purchase additional Chromebooks for students.
so Quinn called me the night before school started, and when you get a call from the IT director the night before school, you think, oh no. And he told me we had a problem, but it's a good problem to have. We have so many more students that enrolled at Fountain Central than what we had anticipated, that we were running out of Chromebooks because some of the Chromebooks that we have, we still have Chromebooks for students, but they're not adaptable to what we need for the state testing and some of those kind of things now. So those Chromebooks are going to be going to our first and second graders who don't take state testing. So we have to get things that do adapt for them now. And when I stopped in Quinn's office the other morning, he was down to one. And that it probably doesn't have that now. So we need to get more, and that's why we're asking you to approve this.
Motion.
Second. All in favor?
That Quinn was in panic mode.
Field trip. It is recommended that the overnight field trip on 9/22/22 and 9/27/22 be approved as presented. This trip will be to Nebraska for the FFA to attend the National Livestock Judging Contest.
So excited that Adam Miller and some of our students will be able to travel to Grand Island, Nebraska with your approval, and participate in the national contest.
Motion.
Second.
All in favor? Other business. A motion was made that changes to policy number 426, teacher appreciation grant, be approved for annual submission to the Indiana Department of Education.
Each year we have to submit our, to get the teacher appreciation grant, we have to submit our policy. However, Indiana legislature this year enabled us to have adjunct teachers. We've got districts in the state who have, as we do, virtual academy, some different things. So now all districts are required to define what teacher is. So I'm suggesting that we add to our current policy The Southeast Mountain School Corporation defines the term teacher as a professional person whose position with a school corporation, special education cooperative career and tech ed program, special ed program established by an interlocal agreement, or charter school, which we're not, but that's still part of the state statute, requires a license as defined in IC 2028-17, and whose primary responsibility is instruction of students in the classroom or virtual classroom. So that would be our definition of a teacher. It ties right into state code definition of a teacher, and with your approval, then that makes our teacher appreciation grant policy in line with new state requirements.
Motion.
Second. All in favor? A motion, a motion was made that changes to policy number 401, criminal history information, be approved.
Okay, the state expanded the criminal history code, and because of that, we have some additional language that we need to add. We say already that we conduct an expanded criminal history check on each employee every 5 years. Now we have to add, including adjunct teachers, since that's something new, and drivers of appropriate vehicles, which is a vehicle owned or contracted by the school corporation with a seating capacity of not more than 15 people, including the driver. Such vehicle includes a car, truck, sport utility vehicle, minivan, or van. Right now, another place in our policy says the corporation is prohibited from hiring an individual who has been convicted. We need to add prohibited from hiring or from continuing to employ or contract with an individual who has been convicted. And then the other change, we say that all school employees, if they are convicted of something, they're required by state law to report those to the corporation. We need to add, in addition, all individuals or entities that have contracts for services with the school corporation are required to immediately report those crimes to the school corporation. So for example, we have Aramark in our building every day. They do our food service. So this means that not only our employees have to tell us, but their employees would have to tell us. And then in the legal reference under IC 2026-5-10, we already had subsections F, H, I, and J, and now there is a subsection K that is part of all this that I just told you we need to add.
Motion.
Second.
Josh is first.
Mhm.
Okay. All in favor? Motion was made that the amendment to the 2022 bus replacement plan be approved as presented.
Last month during discussion, I talked to you about, we have ordered buses. We have them on back order right now. But with your permission, I'd like to cancel one of those before it comes in because our underground fuel storage tank is on the end of its lifespan. And before it disintegrates and we have a whole mess of ground contamination, we would like to replace it with an above ground fuel storage. But I can't pay for that and pay for 2 buses. Our buses that we currently have, because we have eliminated a bus route this year when we did some rerouting, and because we have a phenomenal bus mechanic who keeps all of our vehicles in tip-top condition. In talking with Jason and Angie, we just feel that we're great on buses. And for this 1 year only, we would like to only order 1 new bus and then go back to our regular plan with 2023.
Motion.
Second. All in favor? Motion was made that the amendment to the 2022 capital projects plan be approved as presented.
Okay, this goes along with the same reason we want to do this. We would like to purchase then a new fuel storage tank that would be above ground, and it's lined differently. It's more environmentally friendly, and it's going to keep us from doing something that ends with ground contamination. The expected cost of that is around $25,000 after the delivery, the installation. It may end up being less than that, but, I'm estimating in there just so that, it would be, but it was not a part of the original capital projects plan when you approved the budget last fall. So I need to add that in now. It has already been, besides posted on our website for public viewing, it's been posted on the Department of Local Government Finance. So the next step is if you'll approve it.
Motion.
Second.
All in favor? A motion was made that the new policy, number 526, purchases of supplies and materials be approved.
This is all based on new Indiana code. And it's a short policy, and I'm just going to read the policy for everyone here. The superintendent will serve as the purchasing agent for the school corporation. For purchases and supplies and materials under $50,000, the purchasing agent may purchase those supplies on the open market for the best value and price without soliciting bids, proposals, or quotes. Purchases of food from a youth agricultural education program may be made up to $10,000 annually without soliciting bids, proposals, or quotes, or following federal procurement procedures for purchase of food. For purchases of supplies and materials at least $50,000, but not more than $150,000, the purchasing agent must invite quotes from at least 3 suppliers known to deal in the supplies to be purchased. Such invitations shall be made at least 7 days before the fixed date for receiving the quotes. If a satisfactory quote is received, the purchasing agent shall award the contract to the lowest responsible and responsive offer. So that doesn't mean it has to be the lowest offer. The purchasing agent may reject all quotes received if none are responsive and or responsible. So if it's a vendor we've worked with and have had bad luck, we wouldn't have to take their quote. If the purchasing agent does not receive a responsive and or responsible quote, the purchase may be made by following the process for purchases under $50,000. So then that means we can go on without all the quotes. And that legal reference is Indiana Code 5-22, 8-1.5, -2 and -3.
This is the new code adopted by Indiana.
Yes, and this came to me, I follow the policy updates that go on, and the school superintendent and the school board have legal departments who send stuff out to superintendents all the time to make sure we're staying on top of it. So that's some of those other things that were added, and this policy were things that, because I get to read all those policies and see what's coming down pike and keep us out of orange jumpsuits.
Moves like that. Josh motioned.
Second.
All in favor? It's now time for the elementary report.
We just want to welcome everyone back for the 22-23 school year, and thank all of our staff from technology to front office for helping with that process. During that time, we also host our annual Jumpstart back into school. We restructured a little bit this year, only inviting 25 students, but we had 22 of those attend, so 88% of those invited came, which is up 14% from last year. Of those 22 attendees, 19 had perfect attendance, which again is up 24% from our attendees last year. So that was really nice to see. We do want to thank our PTO as they help sponsor a teacher lunch for the corporation on Monday, as well as 450 ice cream cups for all of our students who attended back to school night. So we really appreciate them doing that for us. Diagnostic testing does begin next week for our students. We've been blitzing procedures in the classroom and the school this week, so we will start academics on Monday. And I feel like this has been one of our best and smoothest starts in a long time. So we look forward to a great year.
Thanks, Kel. High school report.
Yeah, so I've got a lot of shout outs, so it seems redundant, but I got a lot of people to thank. So Amy and Tiffany Bowling have been wonderful. I know in our meetings recently, we've been talking about the face of the school and the customer service piece, and they've been killing it every single day. So big thanks to them. Guidance department, Rachel, Cheryl, and Emily, we've had a lot of enrollments lately. They've been doing a great job with that. Very, very smooth process. Since the time registration began, we're up from 500 to 521 in the junior, senior high school. So we've got quite a bit of students coming in right now. It goes back to them just doing a great job with that enrollment process. The 6th and 7th grade coming over this year, the transition's been great. I'm really happy with the layout that we have. It seems very efficient. It flows really well with the junior high, more towards one wing, high school, and the rest of the building. It seems to be going really well. A couple of kids having some trouble with some locker stuff, but we'll get that ironed out, no problem. And then lastly, I guess a couple more things. Marlene Muniz will be the senior representative returning to us next month. And then I want to welcome Sammy Kraut as our junior representative. They'll both be here next week to give you guys the student update, or next month, I suppose. And then lastly, big shout out to Phil Shavy. Any question that I have, nothing's too big or too small for Phil Shavy. He's killing it, so I'm very happy to have him alongside.
Sounds good.
Thanks. Okay, so now we're to our spotlight with the Fountain County Sheriff's Department. Mr. Kraft, you're up.
So, I don't know, this may be a slightly different version.
Let me give you some other copies. The only difference on this copy versus the ones that we have here, if you want extra, is the very last page at the very bottom.
Right.
So it'll just be some numbers you want to ignore, and then look at the neat others you can have.
Do you want on my phone?
Yeah, this year. What's your this year?
This is a couple more, has some of the state law stuff. if you need.
The same.
Can I have that one back?
Sure.
in a minute?
No.
As we get to the back page. You'll get the back page eventually,
You're good.
because we broke it down into school districts on the back page.
You have Covington's, you have Covington's.
Yeah, so
bottom of yours, so
Do you need this?
just ignore
No,
that.
just ignore it for now, and then we'll get you the right page
Okay.
before we leave here.
Okay.
So we had a school safety meeting with the administrations of the school about a month ago. Roughly, we sat down with them here at the school. We talked about school safety issues, fire, bomb threats, active shooter, which is, as you all know, is the most important safety thing going on in the U.S. right now. It is. The fires aren't killing kids. It's the active shooters that are killing our kids. So after our meeting, I had respectively forgotten about Mike Kersey doing this for a living. He just retired from Montgomery County Sheriff's Office after 30 plus years in law enforcement, commander of their SWAT team. He also commanded a SWAT team for the airport police prior to that. I mean, he's FBI certified. He's got a long history behind him as far as being the expert. So I'm going to explain briefly here what we're going to talk about, and then we might have Mike actually go in depth with it. But so this resolution is backed by the National Sheriff's Association, and also currently the Indiana Sheriff's Association has jumped on board with this, which we are all members of. Actually, I'm probably going to jump on the committee with this because I think it's a great thing. We're going to try to get with our legislators and put this into law. You have fire code safety for doors. You have no active shooter safety for doors. I think it needs to be enacted in law, and I think every school needs to do this. So in a nutshell, what it is Mike came to our office, sat down with us, and discussed some of the school safety things that are up to par for the times right now, and the most efficient materials, so to speak, to make our jobs a little bit easier, to know that everybody in our schools are safe, our kids, our teachers. I mean, I got an aunt that works at the front office. I got a cousin that's a teacher in the elementary. I got a kid in the elementary, a kid in high school. I mean, there's a lot of real estate out here. Not only that, most of you I know outside this place. So I feel that it's the sheriff's office job, since you sit in the county, it's our job to keep you all safe. And that's why I want to bring this to your attention tonight. So it's hardening the school, basically, not making it a fort, but hardening the school, and it will still look like a school. So it starts off with protected spaces. Okay, so protected space is defined as a location in which occupants can retreat that provides enhanced levels of protection from an attack when evacuation is not prudent. Such space would prevent direct or indirect contact from the attacker. This space should consider protection such as non-salt wall construction, hardened doors that prevent breaching by persons or projectiles, treated glass with ballistic laminate or ballistic glass. Space should also provide those in refuge with the ability to communicate their status, safe, injured, or under attack, to outside responders. So your current door situation, just as any other school in our district, is horrible. Okay, they're hollow wood doors that Montgomery County tested out at North Montgomery on a breach. Their SWAT team breached that door in 3 seconds. 3 seconds. So 3 seconds to get into a classroom right here at our school and to shoot every kid in there. That's pretty sad. You know, I would have thought this would have come about. I mean, we've had fire safety for how many years on these doors? And now we are talking about school shooters at this point. And I mean, it goes on to talk about these school shootings that have occurred over the years in here. So Columbine, and let me remind you, most school shootings are over in 6 minutes. 6 minutes is what we have to get to the shooter to stop the threat. And that's from all the data collected from all the school shootings in the United States. So Columbine in 99, 15 killed, 24 wounded. Virginia Tech in 07, 32 killed, 17 wounded. I mean, you can read them here. It's because I feel like we're not doing our jobs of educating schools, and that's why I'm here now, of what is out there for us to deter this from happening. Or if for some reason a shooter comes into our school and does this, and we have these doors, these ballistic doors that are offered here at what I think is a very low cost, but that's my personal opinion. That these doors have been tested. So these ballistic doors have been tested with up to a .308 rifle round, which is a very, very high caliber rifle. If you're not familiar with rifle rounds, it's one of the higher caliber rifles out there. Usually a SWAT sharpshooter uses a .308 caliber.
How big's the bullet? Big.
It's big, yeah, and it's that big around. So,
Really, the kinetic energy behind it is something that's important,
right.
more than the size of the round. It's kinetic energy that's what I worry about.
So these doors, as you can see on the pictures, they have offset the windows from the handle. These doors the door itself is completely ballistic with AR plating. The window is ballistic up to a 357 round, but the window is offset from the handle, so you can't just reach in if you shoot the window out and open the door. Now, the window can be busted out. However, it has taken an attack from the buttstock of a rifle for 3 minutes and still didn't gain entry.
A rifle for 3 minutes and a 3.5-pound axe for 3 minutes. So that's your 6 minutes times of beating on the glass without any breaching of the glass.
Right. And even if the glass is breached, so to speak.
What about the door handle?
So it's offset. So the window is opposite of the door handle. So if your door handle's on the left side, your window is on the right side. Can you see that
I can see that,
picture?
but what if they
There's a
shoot, what if they
standard-
shoot the handle?
That's good.
Okay, so I'm going
I'm
to
sorry,
that.
okay.
So these doors have a piano hinge on them. With your current door situation, if we done an install on these doors, and I'm not a salesman, people, I'm just here to protect you.
Mhm.
They have a piano hinge. So from top to bottom is a hinge on these doors, okay? The casing around the locking mechanism of the door latch itself is bulletproof, okay? It's off of a swipe card system. You swipe in, there's no lock and unlock on the inside of the door. That handle on the inside is always unlocked. The outside is always locked, period. You cannot override that.
I gotta address that for you really quickly. So from our perspective, we looked at the weakness of the door, of every door, what makes it breachable, right? So one is rounds can go through doors, rounds can go through glass, so we need to prevent that. As it comes to when you're talking about the actual locking mechanism. So it's a mortise lock. Most locks aren't like that. You can shoot them out about 3 to 4 rounds of 9mm ammunition, blow the lock out. This one, we fired 3 magazines into it, holds in place. So outside just the locking mechanism, it's your latching mechanism that is also vulnerable. That's why it has a piece of armor across the latching mechanism to prevent that same type of breaching that you're talking about.
Great.
The glass itself, obviously, we looked at the weaknesses on most doors that I don't know the doors that are in your buildings. If it's anything like I've seen nationwide, they're all pretty similar.
Right behind
They
you.
are. They're hollow, wood hollow.
Okay.
Good example, right?
Not that, well, yeah, so yeah. Their weaknesses, hinges, their glass, it's close to the door mechanism. I know this looks high safety and security, it's really not. Rounds will come through it, you can breach the glass, you can breach the door, just reach in and unlock the door. Not to mention the fact rounds do come through the window, so if I'm going to engage somebody from this window, all I have to do is pipe through the window and I can engage targets on the other side. So I'm not putting down anything that anybody does nationwide for school safety, but I'll tell you, there are some things for common sense, why you understand why it may not be applicable or appropriate under the circumstances. I understand they put shades in front of the windows. Me as a bad guy, all that tells me is that there's somebody on the other side that put that shade there. So now I have potential targets on the other side. So then we look at the locking mechanism, similar to this, can be shot out really quickly and then broken off. I'm in your room, because this is the other weak part, right? Going in your jab mechanism. So I've done breaching on these doors before and fired rounds. They can get defeated pretty quickly. If you look at some of the events that are on there right now, every one of those are mass murders that took place from outside the classroom. They didn't enter the classroom. It's through the doorway. So this was like our first overrunning obstacle of preventing mass death. It was make some protected spaces so that educators and the students on the other side have a place of refuge. So I know we'll jump it around a little bit, but to help address your.
Can you use existing jams and all
Yeah.
that?
The difference that we'll see, and like I said, I'm not a salesman either, okay? But what we see across the market, some of the other ballistically rated type doors are steel doors, very heavy. So you do have to change the jam system because they're so heavy. The doors and a lot of this research come from the Indiana Sheriff Association, right? So we reached out and we're looking, I've been part of the consulting piece of this, like companies reach out and go, what will make a difference? And so then we feed them that information and then they address it, if that makes sense, based upon response from law enforcement, et cetera, what works. This is what they put together. It's the only one that has a hybrid door like this that's patented, that's fire rated and ballistically rated. and it can actually go into your normal room as is. And they're lighter weight. They're like 225, 200 and some pounds for this door. Sounds heavy, it is, 230 pounds. The other doors that you'll see on the market are 400, a lot heavier. So you do have to change the structure to install them in the first place. That helps.
Who makes that,
Thank you.
what did you say?
A company called Net Talent out of Fredericksburg, Virginia. The CEO of the company he's a friend, but he's also my hero. He's a Army Ranger lieutenant from Vietnam, Silver Star and Bronze Star recipient. And all he cares, having been in a position where imminent death was around the corner, he understands what's like being shot at and overran. And it just, it drives him to the core knowing that our kids and educators are in that position, and he doesn't want to see that anymore. So. Go ahead, I'm sorry. I just want to kind of just your door question.
So anyways, as talking to the administrators and us, we've never trained together at the school. Never in my career. I've been around here a little over 18 years. I've never trained for an active shooter. We done what was that? Mass evac a couple years ago. So they all had questions, and I kind of didn't have many answers other than, go to a safe place and wait for us. That's, so with that thinking, you guys sit in the county, and this is why I'm here first, and I'm going to go to Covington and Attica, and we're going to address this with all 3 schools in our community. But why I'm here first is the fact that they invited us out for the school safety plan. You sit in the county. I kind of wanted to start here, and maybe we can become a model school for everybody else and get ahead of this before something happens. Because I'm telling you right now, it's all around. It is. We've been we've been watched over many, many times. But it's here, and it's a matter of when. So, I want to get ahead of this game. I feel like if I can get all 3 schools on board, not only just doing the doors, there's more to that than the doors, and we'll get into that a little bit here in a minute, but there's a fog system that goes along with this that we could place in the hallways. There's a camera system that we could, be able to have remote access to see what's going on before we're entering or as they're entering, but just doing the doors would save so many lives and so much time for us to get here and get in. However, we could start at the entrances because they do offer ballistic glass. Also, this company does. I'm not a salesman for them. I mean, you guys can shop around. I'm just telling you what's out there for us to make it safe for everybody here and then to actually feel safe. And, there's times where you may not have an officer out here. They're on vacation, sick. We try to pop in and out as we're patrolling the county, our county guys popping in and out or whatever. But realistically thinking, if we place these doors in our school and they have been tested for 6 minutes with a high-powered rifle and they ricocheted every single time, which is probably going to be bad for the bad guy if it ever happened.
That's what I was thinking.
But we just saved, if not everybody, almost everybody's life by just hardening the doors and possibly the glass within our school. If we can stop it outside and we decide that, you guys decide that you want to try to do the ballistic glass for the front entrance so they're not coming into the school or deterring them for a minute or two for us to get in a place to stop it, that's even better. But
Question.
yes, sir.
So when you and I talked about this, and I've been thinking about it a little bit, as far as most of the school shootings that have happened, have they happened from inside the school, like going into the classroom? Because one thing that I was thinking about here is, we've got pretty much the entire perimeter of our school. The classrooms have glass, that exposed from the outside.
We just talked about that a little bit.
So, how you put the doors in, you're protected from a shooter that's in the school going from classroom to classroom, but if somebody wants to shoot from the outside in,
So I believe all of these school shootings that have happened, and correct me if I'm wrong, but all of them that have happened have occurred from inside. They have made entry into the building.
Majority of shootings, the actual killing has taken place inside. Uvalde was different as far as him targeting the exterior windows because he did fire at the exterior windows as he was approaching the building.
Okay.
That did happen. Parkland, he shot out the windows from the third floor, from inside the building to people outside the building. The hurricane glass is what kind of helped. I stood there. I know what it's like. It stopped it because of the glass, actually protected, because he set up basically an ambush position where everybody evacuated out of the classroom to a corridor where they were moving, and he was trying to engage them from a high level. But gun didn't work. He walked out with everybody else. So majority of that is happening within. Now, it's not a stretch of the imagination knowing that that's going to change. If you look, typically trends happen if you see them happening overseas. You eventually see them migrate into the States, such as shooting through walls, et cetera. Hasn't really happened a lot here. However, it's a potential. Molotov cocktails we talked about earlier wasn't really a big thing or a big thing topic until more recently during the war with Russia and the Ukraine. And then you saw the production of a lot of Molotov cocktails. You introduce that type of weaponry inside a school with an active shooter event, we really have a bad problem.
What is that?
Molotov cocktail, it's basically glass with chemicals like kerosene and gasoline with a rag top, and you light it and you toss it, but it'll stick and it'll burn. The kerosene will create a big fluid black smoke, which makes it very difficult to see. If that was tossed into a classroom, you're not escaping.
What is the cost per door for these?
So that's another thing I was gonna touch on.
It's basically everything comes down to money at some point, no matter what your intentions are. So we already did some of the homework for you just to have an idea. Each door right now, because since it's a patented door that the company that makes it for them hasn't gone to like full production because of the fact that this paradigm is now changing. It's getting on everybody's to-do list. Every school board probably in the country is looking at this topic now and trying to figure out a way to address it. So these doors are $4,500 installed.
How much again?
$4,500
per door?
installed.
Does that matter size?
And how many doors are in your building, Kelly and
We
Joyce?
have them at the bottom of that page.
So we
There's
have done
there's
some
a
of,
quote in here on this.
we have done some of the homework off of an assessment a couple years ago already for this school and for Covington and for Attica. So let me try to find it.
And when we get onto the topic of cost, we'll also want to address your funding mechanisms which to get there.
Right.
Because we're finding across the state, Indiana's kind of unique, that it has some things in place that other states don't have. And I know I was a part of the bills that were written here. And it's surprising me that a lot of school boards and superintendents and so forth don't know it exists. It's the Holman bill, which is a funding mechanism for you in which for communities to decide to fund these type of things for school safety, but we can get to that.
So estimated doors for both schools, this is classroom doors only, is 69 at 4,500, and it's so roughly $310,000.
So you already counted their doors.
Well, that's off an assessment that was done, what?
I don't know your exact
Roughly,
assessment, but
roughly
go by
something.
public sources that were out there trying to figure out, and then like your number of students, the average in national statistics, 17-1, and trying to rate it down we add another 10% estimation for rooms that you might have, like lab rooms or something that don't get used all the time.
Mhm.
So it's really kind of an estimate of what you really legitimately have, but I think it's gonna be fairly close without knowing for sure what your setup is indoor wise,
But
but
I was gonna be willing to walk through the schools with the administrators and kind of see what doors they would all classrooms, I suggest, to see what other doors might be.
So how do we pay for it?
So Senate Bill 127, it's a referendum for school safety levy. So it's a tax, and I know we don't like taxes, but I'll gladly write you the check today if lives depend on it. And I'm sure if you had a public hearing on this, I'm sure most parents would say the same exact thing, because maximum on this tax that you can charge somebody is 10 cents on $100. Okay, so somebody who makes $100,000 a year would pay $1,000 a year into this
Their
tax.
property value.
Actually.
So it's their assessed property value, not their income tax.
So that's
Right.
what the $400 and some thousand dollars is.
So it's 400 and we have it on the back
The
page.
number
So
you put together is like your total number, what we thought it would cost to do all your doors, matched against what the Holman bill allows is the 10 cents per $100 value, assessed value. And gave you what you would actually have on the levy at 10 cents for the 1 year versus what it would cost, or our estimated cost of what it would do.
So our school corporation, we're looking at about 279,000 cost for putting in the doors against a levy of 404.
Yeah, so you would have, the max is 10 cents, you wouldn't have to go to the max. It's just, that's what you're allowed by the Holman bill to approach.
So we would have to
I'll
get
give
a
you this when I'm
referendum
done, Josh.
put on,
But-
so this is an additional tax above what they're already paying. And get that referendum approved to do something with
Who do we have to get approval for that?
the voters of county, the taxpayers.
You have to put it out there and get.
If this is something you would do, I just have working across the country with different groups and schools, and I would highly recommend you have an educational session with your parents.
That's what I was gonna ask.
Because what I'm seeing, what we're seeing across the country too, is there's sometimes a false sense of security from parents that feel like their school has everything they need, or the SROs and sheriffs have everything they need, but don't really delve into it, because sometimes you just don't know what you don't know. And so anytime money's brought up, I get it. I've been on the other end of the referendums, and knowing where the money is going helps, but also knowing why it's necessary. And sometimes that comes down to what's the reality of what we're dealing with. And that's kind of what we discussed, is with the reality of what you're dealing with and what you do now versus what's the cost if you do nothing. And I will guarantee you, from events across the country, the cost of doing nothing is way higher than doing something now. We talk about mental health, very important. I agree with that. We look at it like a stool, a three-legged stool. You got mental health, you got hardening of the school, and then you have the SRO or some kind of response. Any one of those things are missing, you're going to fail. Anytime you introduce human beings into an equation, there's a potential for failure as well. We're seeing that in Uvalde, for one. And so we look at it from a holistic approach, and I'll tell you from the state level, being involved in where we're going now and the conversations that we're having now with state representatives, et cetera, this obviously is a headliner topic, and they're trying to address how do we approach this as a state. And one of the approaches as a state is that we're going to develop minimum standards for school safety that everybody has to meet, so that what we're seeing, everything's kind of disjointed. Everybody's kind of doing their own thing. Some things work, some things don't. And it's not the fault of the educator or the superintendents. It's just, they already have a job to do. And it's already tough enough. And so they don't always have the resources they need to make the critical decisions that they have to make. And so we're trying to ease that by putting some of these standards and stuff in place, so it's an easy thing for them to go to, and knowing where they need to fall.
So are there any schools across the state that already have this implemented?
Yeah, actually, I was part of the first project in the state, which the media called it Safest School in America. We didn't. We just looked at all the obstacles and said, okay, how do we fix it? And we put it in a school that was built in 1958. So it was all retrofitted, and it looks like a normal school that you walk in right now. You can't really tell the difference. There's two schools in Shelby County. There's two more schools coming online. Two of those schools are the first completely ballistically rated schools in this country, in Pike County. And here's the thing, and this is just for information for you guys to use in your thought process, okay? I'm not trying to push anybody any way direction. I just want you to understand the reality of things. So in this state now, we have a known standard of care that's elevated. We also have a funding mechanism, and we have recommendations for basic guidelines. If a school did not migrate towards those standards, especially since you have an active model already that's taking place, it opens up some liability and negligent issues if you're not migrating towards that standard. And that's just because I say that because we spoke with Judge Harris that actually mitigated the Virginia Tech victims lawsuits. And that was his ruling, that if you know there's a known standard and you're not elevating to it, you're considered negligent and hold yourself up to liability. In the end, it's goods and bads is the fact that we are progressing and we are kind of moving that direction more so than a lot of states. The other side of the disadvantages, all the schools that aren't migrating there and trying to catch up are kind of in that position right now. So I'd say the thing that's important is we know it's going that direction. If you're considering about elevating your standard of care in your schools, which you decide as a community what standard you want to provide, you would want to do it earlier than later until you're made to do it. Because that time frame that you have between doing it and not doing it is an open door for bad things to happen. And so I would just encourage you, if you're going to look at it quickly, just because I know the environment is migrating that way. And I'm very happy that that's happening because I'm not happy that we have to worry about these kind of things. Being 30 years in law enforcement, my job has been to risk my life for other people. But I also am very frustrated knowing that no matter what I do, no matter what training I've given people, I can't physically be there fast enough to stop the killing or to stop the dying. And for me, that is just a nightmare for me because I've got kids. I've been married to a teacher. I know the environment in which they operate. And just me personally, I took an oath to stand in the way of harm's way. I have no problem with that. Our educators and our students did not. And it's not fair, in my mind, to put them in that position. They should be able to go to school. I know it's on my son's mind at 14, is this going to be the last day I go to school? So we want to talk about mental health. Let's talk about the effect it has on our educators and our students that go to school every day wondering if this is going to affect them. If you don't think it's on the mind of the students, talk to some of our educators. I guarantee you it's on their mind. It's on my kids' mind. I've talked to other kids in schools that we've done that we have protected. I've seen the stress get relieved on their mind that they can go to school and get the education they want in a safe environment, because school is sometimes the only safe environment these kids have to go to. They can't go home and feel safe. That's the only place. It's the only place for adults that care about them that they can go to and finally feel safe. I don't think it's fair that we're letting them down by not providing. Unfortunately, this is the reality of our world. This is not going away. No matter what we throw at it, what we're trying to do is mitigate the damage when it does. So I'm saying mental health is incredibly important. It will miss things. The threat sometimes comes outside that mental health radar that's not in your school. So that's unfair to put that all the weight on that being the only answer. SRO, we've talked about in their buildings, and I'm a firm believer in SROs or any armed response to a bad guy with a response. The problem is time is still against them, because if you're in one of these big schools and the event cooks off at the front of the building, and by the time he hears about it, finds it, locates it, and runs to it, he's already outside that 6 minutes curve. So that's a disadvantage, right? So we need to change this curve, folks. I'm just being honest with you. This is a means that we in law enforcement have seen that will work. This will make a substantive change in the outcome of these events. If I can keep a bad guy with bad intent away from potential victims, I'm winning the day. This provides you a method to do it. I understand you can look at other products. I don't really care. You'll have to put out bids probably to meet the standards. I will just tell you that this is the one that we know checks the boxes of all the things that we need, plus still doesn't violate the fire code, doesn't prevent free egress out of the classroom in case you have to get out of the classroom. It doesn't create a situation where the educators have to expose themselves to dangers to go outside and lock the door, because it locks automatically, it shuts. It doesn't expose anyone to danger to have to go and deploy something that will make that door stop because bullets still come through the door. If you're trying to deploy a mechanism that will stop them from opening it, you still have to get there in front of it and expose yourself to potential danger because you don't know where that attacker is. He could be right outside your door. So what we try to do is minimize all the things or obstacles that the educators and students have to do, run, hide, fight, et cetera. That's not an option. Somebody here, a special needs educator, how difficult would that be for you to vet?
Very difficult.
Exactly. So we try to take that into account too, is there's going to be conditions where evacuation isn't a possibility. There's going to be a situation where running and hiding or fighting isn't an option. Hiding under a desk is not an option. And so that's not fair, in my mind, to put her in that position to try to worry about her own safety. That's a natural human response. And then that of all the kids in the classroom that have special needs don't understand what's going on, doesn't understand the circumstances, what's happening. So we need to do a better job of providing them the tools they need to stay safe, law enforcement the tools to respond and do their job. And that's basically, I'll get off my soapbox. But this is something that's really, really passionate for me because I'm tired of going to these places after the fact and seeing the damage that is done. We can do better, and we're not. And I'll be honest with you too, every one of the ones that was in here, never thought it happened to them. I sat there in Parkland, I stood right over there where that school resource officer stood. I sat on the panel for the Parkland's first school safety committee after that, commission after that. Max Schacter's a good friend of mine. He lost his son at Parkland. And I'll tell you that the pain that these families go through and the cost that incurs afterwards never, ever goes away. We moved to the Noblesville district, Noblesville now. Noblesville West is where my kid went. We had a shooting there, if you all recall, not too long ago as I was moving there. We have friends there who girls were not even in that room, cannot listen to fireworks because it still reminds her of the event that happened in her school that day that she wasn't even in close contact to. That cost never goes away. So when we look at money and what we're going to spend it on, I think we need to look at our priorities. What's really, really important, the cost of not doing things. Again, not trying to sell you on this path. I just want you to make good decisions with information that you need. And if you need information about how these events happen, real quick, they're over within 6 minutes. They're extremely violent. 911 usually takes 2 minutes for a 911 call to go out. When they get that call, it's usually dated information and it has no information pertaining to what just happened. It feeds them information that something is happening here, but that situation has changed since that 911 call went out. The person who's calling 911 doesn't call while they're being shot at. They get to a position of safety and they relay the information they might be hearing or they think they know. That does not provide the intelligence they need to react. So they're over fast, they're very violent. National statistics for law enforcement response is 7 to 15 minutes. It's over in 6 minutes. Unfortunately, we're getting there in time for the conclusion and investigation part. That's not the way we win this day.
I have.
And if you look at all these schools that have had shootings, they are a lot bigger than our school. A lot. How many lives are lost? That's another thing it just came to mind today of how small our school is compared to these other schools that have lost tens, 20, 30, 50 people. I can tell you, we've taken some measurements on hallways while we've been in here with a rangefinder. And I can tell you how far it is from the kindergarten hallway clear to the other end. And the hallways in between that we would have to clear to get to that hallway. You're talking if our SRO is at that school and they have to come over here and clear each hallway to get to the kindergarten hallway to come in the other side, it's over. It's completely over. That's more than 6 minutes. It took me 4 minutes to drive from the jail to right here in front of this door today. That's not running hard, but 4 minutes from the jail, and I'm probably the next closest unit. That's the things that I want to put into perspective for you guys when you're thinking about this.
So the question I have, I guess, just with what you told me, let's assume these conversations are going on across the state, across the country. I mean, how is this company, and this is the company that we need to go with, you know, how do they meet demand, supply, demand, and?
Yeah, well, I've had that conversation too, because, so, you know, there has been a call to action put out to every 92 counties
Yes.
in the state from the Indiana Sheriff Association to move towards a hard door campaign, just because we feel like that's the low hanging fruit that will actually make a difference. If we can just do that, we will make a really huge difference in the outcome of these events. So that was my question to them too. The group that actually manufactures the company, so they stand ready to open up a whole nother line, and they'll be just dedicated to that. They can do 3,000, maybe 6,000 doors a year. And so they can produce pretty quickly. I think as demand grows, obviously, like anything else, price also falls. So speaking, I mean, I can't speak to their business. I just know these are the questions I had to, because I know I'd get asked, even though I don't represent them. But that's why I've been told that they stand ready to push forward and do a whole separate line. I think as demands go, because the Indiana Sheriff's Association Executive Director also sits on the National Sheriff's Association Board of School Safety. So I foresee that this same time the call to action will go out nationwide. There'll be tons of companies, and that's great. If other companies can come up with something that works just as well, awesome, because we need to change industry to meet the needs, right? Just like we do with fire code. We need to create that environment where private industry reacts to that, and that's great. It's a huge, incredible market. A bunch of people will be able to, you know, make their business whatever they need to make it. But as for this one, I know that this exists, I know this works. It's the only reason why I would say it is because I know this will make a difference. They stand ready. They have that lined up already because they know it's going to be a need. The schools that put their doors in already in multiple counties wanted like different veneers and stuff for the doors, and they've met it. They've even sent in a block of wood, says we want this color, and they're like, okay, it's not our lineup, but we'll make it happen. And so it looks just like that door. It looks like a wood door, but only like you're seeing in the pictures. It looks just like that.
So you said those lock automatically, so how do you open them from the outside?
There's two ways. You can key lock it from the outside if you want to unlock it, or they can actually be electrified magnetic locks, so you can release them magnetically.
So like with our badge system that we currently have, we could use that.
Yeah, as long as you wire it to do so.
But that's not included in the cost of the doors, right?
No, that's because that's up to the customer how they operate, because that gets more advanced, so you don't want to like just pile on stuff. Some people already have
Right, but I'm
access.
saying, if we would end up doing that, we'd have to figure that in as a cost.
Yeah. Yeah, if you have, because there's much more to what they do, which plays into
Right.
that part, as far as being able to control every door independently if you need it, and release those doors. So that plays into it. We were really kind of just addressing the very minimum of
Yeah.
protected space, which also involves protected squares in the corners that double as a tornado shelter, so you don't have to leave the room for the shelter, but that's part of the hardening piece. The other part that we do is also the electronic intelligence, feeding information right to 911, status, interactive maps, that is live maps that they can see that know what's going on in the building to launch countermeasures to the attack to build in more time response for law enforcement, which is also a fire suppressant. So if it gets the Molotov cocktails, you can actually fight the fire remotely from your computer. Just by clicking a switch.
I have a question, and
Yes.
I'm looking at the other estimate, okay? And this said 11 years needed one, so if you did 10 cents, okay. So if you did the 10 cents, okay, on the it looks, so that's just 1 year that they would have to pay that extra tax. Is that correct?
Yes.
So they
When we
only
broke
pay it
them out-
1 year and then they're done.
Yeah,
So
when we
you're gonna
broke it
raise your
down per
taxes once.
district, we try to go based on what it, the size of obviously changes. So like we do some of the larger school districts, it's gonna be different, maybe a 2-year, or the second year might be, I think Covington might be, no, Tiffany County was like, 1
Covington's
year.
1 year. Mhm.
Tiffany County, I think is 1 year, and then a second year with a lower amount per 100%, 100.
Well, I think that's the way to sell it, because it's only gonna be 1 year.
Yeah,
Right, and so the law provides you, I think, up to 8 years on that tax levy. That money obviously has to be spent on school safety only,
Mhm.
but it allows you up to 8 years, or you can have it for 1 year, and if it's paid for what you needed to do, then you can drop it at that point.
if trends follow what's going on nation, like, when Fort Parkland happened, they came to Indiana to see what we were doing, because we had moved ahead on legislation. We'd already created the school, so they wanted to come and see how it affects them. They have taken the ball and ran with it since then, with their commissions and done some other things, like in their state, you have to be a preferred vendor before you can even sell anything into the school for school safety. In other words, you have to be able to prove that what your product does what it says it's gonna do. I don't think that's a bad idea, because there's a lot of stuff that's getting sold. And quite honestly, if you use some of the things that I've seen used, you're making the situation worse, and it's not going to save the lives that they're selling it as. I have an integrity issue with that, because some of those companies reached out to me to be consultants for them, and I just can't in good conscience do it, despite what they would pay. It's just, 30 years, integrity is all I got at the end of when I have to be able to look in the mirror.
And this one-
And so I couldn't do it. So I foresee that Indiana will eventually probably do that same type of thing, is whatever you have to be able to prove independently tested. And that's the thing, these doors were independently tested by another ballistic company to make sure they meet their standards. It wasn't done by them, it was done separately. Which was important information for me to know, because you can self-certify anything sometimes, but it was independently done. I've seen it done in other aspects, so.
Thank you.
I appreciate you guys coming in, presenting.
I appreciate your time.
Very interesting. And I think it's something for us to discuss for sure, see where it goes. And I assume you're available throughout the process of educating the
Yes.
public,
Yeah, so
everybody.
since I retired,
She was there than
in
ever.
June, pseudo-retired, I guess. I started my own company for consulting, because I do threat assessments for schools, corporations, business, et cetera, trainings, active shooter training, stuff like that, a bunch of other stuff. I do as well. I got sought after to do this stuff because of my relationship with the Sheriff's Association and my background in the school safety market with the National Tactical Officers Association and et cetera. So my game plan is, the way it looks, is that I will be, as a sheriff's department, ISA unfolds their plan of going out to their sheriff's departments. We will be a support role for the sheriffs as they go to their school boards, to their parents, and help them provide the information they want out. So we'll be there in kind of a support role, but I honestly think, this is a community decision. So I think it needs to come from the stakeholders, which is the law enforcement, the educators, the school boards, the parents. You guys need to make the decision of where you want to gravitate. All I can really do is helping is share facts and information for you to make those decisions. And so that is kind of the role I'm finding myself in, is going on behalf of those departments and stuff at school boards and trying to help clear out the mud and kind of give you good information, make critical decisions.
And the sheriff's department will be fully on board. Sure. Public hearings or meetings or whatever. There's more moving parts to this than just the doors that I want to also address is we have to train together. We have to work together. That's the only way this is going to work. You can't just put the doors in and say, oh, there you go, and then you don't see us around much and we don't talk to anybody, and we have to train. We have to be able to, law enforcement has to be able to come into the schools and train also for active shooters, which they've been great. The administration's been great. When we have FOBs, we can come in here on the weekends or whenever and do our thing. But I would like to train with the teachers, the administrators, and get them on board of kind of what their role would be in a situation like that, because I don't know if any of them have had any of that training, honestly.
I saw that recently on Discovery or the Learning Channel, and it was out of Ohio, and they were actually teaching just that. If someone came into the building, and they also taught them how to shoot.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it was interesting, and it was a good program, and I think they reached out to I think they have 16 places in Ohio that are actually doing that, but you had teachers of all ages that was learning how to, how to navigate it.
That collaborative effort is extremely important because there's no one entity that can solve this problem by themselves. And I'll tell you, on game day, I just did a full-scale active shooter scenario for Crawfordsville, involving emergency management, lifeline, et cetera. And we found holes, things that we could do better. But it took all the stakeholders working together to expose them, because your plan may not be the same as theirs, or it sounds good on paper, but when you go to test it, it fails. And you don't want to fail on that day. That's the last possible time. So the collaborative effort between law enforcement, educators, everybody, even parents, knowing the reality of the event and what will work, what won't work, and training those things together and making sure your emergency action plans are the same, match up to what you actually do. Because I find those when I do assessments, we review your emergency action plans, and sometimes they don't really address the needs that you really have. And so it really is a thing where everybody has to kick your ego at the door and come together and realize what your common mission and common goal is and work the problem. I did it with all my SWAT operations for years. I've been in command for 25, multiple operations over the 25 years I was in the commander's position. And it's always been everybody brings something to the table. Ultimately, I have to make the decision, but we all bring a piece and work the problem itself, and how do we resolve that? It's the most effective way to make it happen and make sure it doesn't fail, and have contingency plans. That falls on working relationships with everybody involved.
I appreciate both of your guys' time tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Want you these papers back?
That's your-
Well, you want the one from Covington back?
That's fine. I'll get more. Yeah, that's fine.
Hey, you can go away, or
Okay.
we'll make it more for them.
Okay, all right.
Appreciate it very much.
Thank you.
So moving on to discussion items.
The 2022 iLearn results have been published and are available through the state. But as we look at how our students are doing in comparison to the state and in comparison to the districts around us, the 8 districts, I see some good things and I see a lot of area for work. For example, grades 3 through 8, the state English language arts overall proficient was 41.2. But in our 5th grade, 7th grade, and 8th grade, we all outperformed the state. The other thing, when I look at our performance compared to the districts around us, the 8 of us, we had the second highest overall proficient, but in 5 of the 6 grade levels, we either have the highest, second highest, or third highest scores from all the schools around us. So that's good news. The scores themselves statewide, certainly there's some work to be done. I don't think that test scores are the total picture of what a district is or isn't doing, but certainly important part. Our math scores for those same grade levels, the state proficiency was only 39.4%. The only grade level that, and was significantly above that, our 3rd grade, 58.3% of our kids were found proficient. So that was good news. But overall, math, just looking historically in this district, math has been the lower of the two areas and an area that we really have to focus on. We talked about that last spring as our last school year as we were going through the textbook adoption because it was math textbook adoption. And part of moving our 6th grade over was an answer to this and being able to do some things differently with how we support students. So the iLearn scores tell us that we've got some work to do. That work has already started and it's going to be ongoing. And, we're looking at growth and proficiency, and we're just hoping that this year we will see the growth. We haven't had meaningful scores to compare with year after year because COVID has interrupted. We got a new test and then we had COVID and had no test, and then we started over again. So at least we have some basis and we know where we're starting, and we're going to build from there. Next on the agenda is the statements from the superintendent. So a few things I want to talk about. First of all, out-of-district transfer students. As of today, policy number 301 for our district says applications for out-of-district transfer students must be in by September 1st. The state has cracked down on that. Last spring, we had to send a copy of this policy and tell the state that date is hard and fast. So if someone comes after that date and doesn't like it at their district, so they want to transfer here, September 1st is the deadline to apply for transfer student. But as of August 11th, we have 47 students who do not live in our district who have applied to attend school in our district. Now, not necessarily are all of those students new. So my 2 kids are 2 of those 47. They were here last year. In Indiana, any employee of a school district, even if they live out of the district, Indiana law says their child can come to that district. They still have to fill out the paperwork. So any of those kids would be part of that 47. But we've also had a number of new students, which is why we have to buy some more laptops, I pointed out. So that's good news, and we've still got a few weeks that we could get more people transferring into our district. That said, 47 students, based on the state tuition dollars that this brings to Southeast Fountain, is $311,845 that would be going to other districts. Now, I do not know yet how many of our students may have transferred out, and look at that, but still, this is over $300,000 that has come into the district to help pay our education and operation funds. And this does not include any additional funding any of the 47 may qualify for due to being in CTE, special education, qualifying under Title I, or Title III to bring that funding into our district as well. So it's really important to us, and this ties into the iLearn. We want to see us being in the top tier in lots of ways, in our academics, in our athletics, in our clubs, in our student-teacher ratio, all of those things that help, and in our safety. We want the things that make the families want to bring their kids here, so I'm really excited about that. Also, I want to again state what our principal said. We are off to a great start this year. We are fully staffed in both buildings. We have, except I just hired one of Kelly's staff members for something new today. So now she's going to have to get another IA. But in our buildings, we are fully staffed, and until she hires another IA, I won't take her employee form for a district thing. Our 6th grade transition, I didn't see any kids crying, nor did I see any staff crying. It was all happy over there. I spent a lot of time over at Fountain Central yesterday. And, you know, I stood in the hall as kids came with their schedule and looked at me and said, where do I go now? And I incorrectly sent them to A-lunch when the 6th and 7th don't go to A-lunch. So then they had to be redirected by someone who knew a little better, but I figured that out fairly quickly. But at least I got them headed in the right direction. So it went really well over there. I also went into the elementary and did a lot of visits there. Our life skills program is something new over there this year. And it's going, you know, the first 2 days, if that's an indication of what it's going to be, it's going to be a good fit over there. I spoke to one of the life skills aides this morning and he said, man, I was so nervous Tuesday and thought, what's this going to be? And he said, and Wednesday after we had this kid, he's like, I'm so glad I'm in this program. And that just made my heart happy. So I think that's going to be a great addition to our district. Another great thing, the Mustang is back. So anyone that has not been in the gymnasium, it's a new incarnation of the Mustang because this is the third time we've had one up there, and each time it's been a little bit different. But if you haven't seen it yet, it looks phenomenal. So our Mustang is back. Also, the landscaping around our buildings looks fabulous. We have worked really hard, had someone come in and do some landscaping to make our buildings look great. And again, we want people to come here. We have to do great things on the inside and the outside, and that's part of it. We have a new pavilion out here for an outdoor learning lab for our pre-K program. That was built by our maintenance team, our facilities team did that and worked really hard on that, and it looks wonderful. Our pre-K students have a great place to come out and learn outside. Also, as you walk through the buildings, the floors, the walls, the lockers, everything is gleaming. Our custodial staff did an outstanding job this summer as well. And, you know, I just looked at it and I said to Beth, our custodial lead person, I'm like, can we make the kids take their shoes off at the door? Because everything looks like, but no, I'm just really excited about the year ahead. And we have a great team, great leaders in our buildings and in our departments. And I'm just looking forward to an outstanding year.
Great.
Thank you. Statements, concerns of the board.
I want to thank you guys for coming because that was really informative, really. It's an eye opener. And, you know, I think it's something that everybody fears. So I'm thrilled that you came and, you know, I think we'll investigate further.
From the board, I'm going to speak for the board a little bit. Thanks to the staff and administrators and everybody that did everything all summer to make this a good start of the year. I've heard nothing but good so far. So I think all the kids looked excited on the pictures I seen on the Facebook page. My wife showed me some pictures and everybody looked excited. And I was surprised that all the kids I talked to here late in the summer, you ready to go back to school? Yeah, I am. They're excited about it. I think that year of COVID really helped the kids' attitudes about going to school. So if we get anything positive out of it, I guess that would be it. But yeah, I just want to thank all you guys for doing everything that you do. The staff, the administrators, the central office, all the way down to, like you said, the custodial staff. You know, our goal is to be that school that everybody wants to come to. And I think that's where we're at. And you know, it's funny that with you guys coming in and talking about it, we've already kind of talked about this as the administrators and us worked with the Byron,
Setting strategic.
strategic planning, that, that's one of the things that's on the top of our list is to make our school the safest it can be. So we appreciate you guys coming in and going over that. And it's definitely put some bugs in our head to go forward and try to make our school as safe as we can.
Well, having the first safe school around, you may bring in more people.
Yeah, right.
More teachers.
Correct.
I mean,
That plays into teacher retention too, because I've personally seen some really good qualified teachers leave the profession because they were concerned about the fact that they weren't sure they could put themselves in harm's
Yeah.
way for a student, and that's really shouldn't be.
And we here at Fountain Central have a little bit of tie to that, because when you talk about Columbine, right, Dave Sanders was
Yes, yeah.
So, we memorialized him with our basketball gymnasium, and that's kind of a near and dear to us. So we appreciate everything you guys did.
Josh, welcome to the high school.
Thank you very
Yeah.
much.
Glad,
Appreciate that.
excited to have you. And Jill, welcome back.
Yes.
Really excited to have you here.
What's the best thing going? Well, and the fact that they're both smiling, after a few days, that's a good thing.
Oh, yeah.
I'm just glad Jill doesn't have to wear that black and gold anymore.
They can have shoes too.
So we've already done a document signing, so motion for adjournment.
Motion.
Second. All in favor? I have a